What's going on, guys? Blazing Tech, and in today's video we're going to be talking about my 1999 Acura Integra DC2/DC4 in 2020. So before I talk about how it drives, it's important to talk about how it looks. Mine is a GS, and like all Integras of this generation, it has a very iconic look and shape. What really gives it away, and one of my favorite things about the Integra aesthetically, is the bug-eye headlights, and I think that it's a very nice touch, and you can tell what this car is from a mile away. Unlike my Q50, this Integra is really straight, cuts right to the chase, and there's a certain beauty about such a simple body line, and as you can see, it's very clean, and it doesn't try and do too much. It's a 3-door hatch, and sneakily enough, it looks like a coupe, but you would never expect this to be a hatchback. It looks great. These partially machined 15-inch wheels, also known as the meshies, are very nice. I think it's one of my favorite things about this car, other than the headlights, of course. With the prices of DC2 GSRs and Type Rs just skyrocketing, I think it's important to really like the way this car looks, especially if you're going to be spending more than $10,000. Taking a look at the rear of the vehicle, it's the same thing. The taillights are very simple but very clean. You can see a sprinkle of S2000 in these taillights in my opinion. Obviously they're not clear, but my GS comes with a low profile wing that comes standard on the GSRs as well. And I really think that all around this car looks really good. It's very simple. It's got a touch of S2000, a little touch of NSX. You can really tell that they did a good job styling this and also keeping it very simple. In my opinion, a lot of the greatest Japanese cars came out of Japan from this time period. So when we talk about living with a car like the 1999 Acura Integra, you would think since it's relatively small by today's standards, the interior would be the same way. I'm pleasantly surprised that this has a considerable amount of storage options. For example, I want to point out this one on the door panel. It's got this really weird cubby hole type of deal. I didn't really know what to store in here, but as you guys can see, let me show you that you can put a lot of things in here. Here's my iPhone 8 Plus. You guys know it's a full-size phone. So I'm going to go ahead and plop that in here. I'm also going to go ahead and plop my full-size wallet in here. And that holds up great. That way when I'm really driving properly, I don't really have to worry about these items. I know everybody carries around their sunglasses. This is a standard Ray-Ban case. Fits in there like a glove. And then I can still put my wallet right here. Look at that. Beautiful. My particular Integra is a GS with the special edition light gray leather, or dark gray, however you want to see it. But these seats are extremely comfortable. As you can see here, you have a lot of different control options. This is mainly for the bottom part, the insert, and the bolster on the bottom. You can adjust the height of your butt, I guess this way, and you can also adjust the height of your thighs this way. I'm sure there's a very technical name for these adjustments, but there's no electronic control for all that. You can even adjust the lumbar support with a little bar on this side. But let me tell you, I've pushed distance in these seats, and they're very comfortable even after 21 years. Alright everybody, just for reference, I'm 5'7", and you know me, I'm no Slim Jim. This is where I drive very comfortably in this position. But just for example, if you're taller than me, look at how much space I still have. Considerable amount of space. I could still drive like this, keeping it real with you guys, but I'm very comfortable with it about right here. It's easy to forget in this 3-door hatch that you do have rear seats. So without even opening the hatch or anything, you do have a decent amount of space to put items, perhaps a grocery run or something like that. And you can put some bags back here, some boxes. It's easy to forget that this car is a hatchback. It has that coupe design to it. As you can see, you have a considerable amount of cargo space in the rear. I guess you could say in the boot of this 3-door hatchback, you've got a nice cargo divider. That way when you shut the tailgate, everything looks like it's hidden and you can't really see what you have back here. Very easily I removed that rear cargo privacy divider, and as you can see, without sacrificing any space whatsoever in the front, meaning my passenger and myself are still seated in the same way that you saw, I went ahead and folded down the rear seats, and you can fit a considerable amount of stuff back here and things. As you can see, this is the cargo divider just for space sake. You know, that thing's probably about at least 2.5 feet long, so it's really nice to have this, and it's very sneaky. You wouldn't know unless you tried it, but me being 5'7", I can actually lay down in here sideways and kind of fold my legs just a bit and close the gate, and I could actually sleep back here if I really wanted to. From the driver's perspective, there's still a considerable amount of places where you can hide things. Right here, for example, I keep my garage door opener. Obviously, right here, we have the ashtray. I keep my change and some cash in here just in case I need it. Cup holders, if needed. I think that the cup holders are an absolute joke. We have a considerable amount of space for other things, including this really nicely sized glove box here. And then we have this center console where we can store more items. As the driver, things are definitely geared towards you in terms of all the control. You've got the control for our electronic sunroof. And obviously you have all our climate control controls, our stereo, which came standard with a single DIN CD receiver. I went ahead and changed to this Sony high power receiver. I still have the original one. The horn is a button horn, which is kind of cool. Honda-esque cruise control here, and the cruise control, I guess you could say, set button is here, and all the controls here. You can control the dimmer, you know, obviously the wipers and everything like that. Nothing that you really have to reach for strenuously to kind of grab. You can grab this very easily. You can even grab the passenger side cubby very easily. So as the driver, this is an absolute dream in terms of getting your car going. As mentioned before, mine is the GS with special edition leather, and I think that the leather has held up very well. The leather wrap steering wheel is still in great shape. The interior just screams quality. I wish you guys could touch this and feel this. Obviously this is a luxury vehicle, but it still is a suit and tie version of a Honda Civic, and Japanese cars from this time period at this price point were still very high quality. Components like the vinyl, the plastic, the leather, it's all great quality. When I went ahead and changed the deck, I was able to do so without breaking any pieces, and I've done decks and speakers in my WRX and my Tacoma, and that quality just isn't there at these particular cars at the same price point relatively. So being in a car like this is very refreshing. Very high quality inside. A challenge that I faced when I first got into this vehicle was thinking, now where am I going to mount my smartphone? I think it's very important to have a hands-free area for smartphones and tablets of that nature. So what I went ahead and did is I found this little dead spot here that everybody has in their Integra, no matter the model, whatever sub-model it is, from 93 to 01. I went ahead and installed a Steely mount, and this is how they look. It's a magnetic mounting system. My dad has the same mount, and I can go ahead and go like this, and boom. Unfortunately, I do lose some vent, but it's a small price to pay for having a very accessible and great location for my smartphone. To help with the space issue, I went ahead and added a rear seat cargo net organization deal, I guess you could call it, and that's helped me out. You can see there that I've got some tools and stuff and a lot of things in those little pockets and cubbies, and that's really helped me. This is probably about a $10 to $12 thing that anybody could really add to their car. Definitely helps out a lot. Alright, let's go ahead and knock out some specs. I'm not going to bore you guys with too many details, but this is the B18 B1. Unfortunately, it's the non-VTEC motor, which in the States, this is a USDM motor that puts out 140 horse and 127 pound-feet of torque. Now, mated with the 5-speed manual transmission, the red line is 6,800 RPM, which in Japan it's 7,300 RPM, which really kind of sucks for us. But once you're kind of in that stratosphere, you don't really feel much of a difference with such a small discrepancy between red lines. And this motor, although it doesn't have VTEC, you can really tack it out and you can get a lot of ponies out of it, and it feels really great with the weight of the vehicle, which is about 2,400 pounds for the 3-door hatchback, and it feels amazing. I don't want you to get bogged up in the numbers. When you drive this thing, it's just incredible. The steering is nice and precise. It's got the double wishbone suspension up front. It's got 4-wheel disc brakes, so you're very confident in its stopping ability as well. But it's very, very live. The steering wheel, in my opinion, is just a little bit big, but you have to remember that this car was designed to be a great daily with a sprinkle of performance. Another really good thing to talk about in the Integra is that it runs on 87, and I think the tank is about 13 gallons, and you can get legitimately 30 miles to the gallon. That's just incredible. And on cheap gas, you know, this thing cost me about 30 bucks to fill up, and I think the most I've gotten out of a tank is about 350 miles, which is incredible. With this car, it's so important not to get bogged down into the specs. Yes, it's front-wheel drive, or as some people say, wrong-wheel drive, but it just feels so good. Honda has been making successful and legendary motors for years, decades. The gearbox is just very smooth. If you've driven an S2000, or if you're just a manual fanatic, you know that the S2000 gearbox is just revered as one of the best gearboxes ever made. And I own one. It's my personal S2000, and I can tell you that this gearbox is just as smooth with just a little bit longer throws. Now, they do make short throw shifters for this vehicle, but I find that the throws are, honestly, in the stock iteration of the car, I think they're great. I mean, you could get a little bit more performance out of it, but I think that the throws are honestly a very good length, and just the way that the OEM shift knob is designed, it's kind of designed to be shifted like this, kind of like a pilot's grip. So I couldn't imagine that I would like a short shifter, but everything is great. The throttle is very responsive. I'm gonna go ahead and drop it and give it some gas. Very responsive throttle. The clutch is nice and light, which means that it's very good for beginners, and like I said, it's great for daily driving. Alright everybody, I'm gonna beat an A4 right off the line. With the AC on. I hope you heard that little bit of chirp up there at the front end. That's always real fun. And I wasn't even really tacking it out there. I just got up and let it stretch its legs a little bit. So I'm cruising at 50 miles per hour in 5th gear at about 2,400 RPM. Now if I put my foot into it, it would take a little while for me to get power, but if I drop it into 4th, now I'm at 3,400 RPM, and I can give it the beans, and I can pretty much get around anybody that I want if they weren't expecting me to do so. And the nice thing is, when you're in 5th gear and you're doing about 70, 75, you're already at that 3,000 mark. So when you put your foot into it, get it up to about 3,500, because keep in mind, red line for our USDM B18B1 is 6,800 RPM. As you approach that 6,800 RPM, from 3 to about 5 is a really good spot. It gives you a lot of power. Alright, that's 3rd gear. It's 4,000 RPM. 5,000 RPM. 70 miles per hour. 6,000 RPM. Oh! 6,800. When you're doing canyon weekend driving, when you're doing curvies, when you're doing your autocross in this B18B, something to consider is you're right in that power band as you're whipping it around, and you're getting a lot of good power out of this 1.8 liter, motor, and it's just geared really, really well. If you're just looking at this car solely on horsepower and torque, you're gonna say, oh, this is very underpowered in 2020, but you have to remember what it is. It's a very light front-wheel drive peppy car, and I'd venture to say that you could take pretty much anything off the line if they weren't expecting it. It's very quick off the line. So you just have to be smart with it. Obviously, if you want something that is going to deliver raw power, I don't think that this is the car for you. But this thing is just so fun to drive. Now, I've done some canyon runs in this car, and I must say that it is a little bit tall, and obviously the height kind of reflects its overall goal, which is to deliver a great daily driver with a sprinkle of performance. I wish it was a little bit lower. There is a good amount of body roll in this vehicle. I have it on the stock suspension. I redid the front shocks with some KYBs. It handles great, don't get me wrong, but there is a little bit of body roll. And if you've driven a vehicle like the S2000 or a Miata, which virtually has absolutely no body roll, you're gonna really notice that. But if you've never driven anything like that, this is gonna feel like a little go-kart. The other thing that you have to consider is that at this height, it makes for a great daily driver. Not just in terms of city streets, but highway as well. I feel like if the suspension was lower, everything was lower, it would not be as comfortable as it is on the road. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think that the Integra, a DC2 or a DC4, I don't think that that should be considered a race car. I think as it stands, it's a great car that you can have, that's a daily, that's very reliable, that also has a sprinkle of fun, and you can let loose when you want to. I don't think that any iteration of the Integra, maybe the Type R, but those are kind of astronomical in terms of their prices, and the everyday man isn't going to have the opportunity to get an Integra Type R. But I think that the Integra, for what it is, stock, which is the way that I'm keeping it, it's just so much fun. It's so reliable. Not to say that lowering it is going to lower the reliability, but you have to really consider what you're doing when you lower the car. You have to be careful about bumps, you know, speed bumps, anything really. It would take my commute to UC Davis from Bakersfield, California. If it was a little bit lower, I don't think it would be as comfortable as it is in its stock height and its stock iteration. And I've done that journey in this vehicle already, and it's very comfortable. You don't really feel it. The verdict, in my opinion, an Acura Integra in 2020, DC2 or DC4, VTEC or non-VTEC, I think that if you have realistic expectations of what the car is and what you need the car to do, it's a great car for you. If you want to get an Integra, a GSR, or a regular RS, you know, GS, LS, you have to realize that this car is 21 years old, and it is not a rocket ship by any means. Yes, I've said it's quick. Yes, I've said it feels great, and I believe that. I honestly believe that. But if somebody told me, you know, Raja, I want something really fast and I'm thinking about getting an Acura Integra, I think you can get more fast car. Actually, I don't even need to do the air quotes there. You can get a faster, quicker car with more horsepower, more torque, a bigger motor for about the same, and in some instances maybe less than an Integra. The Integra's legacy and its following and its price that it commands now 21 years later is not that of something that will knock your socks off every single time. It's not going to throw you back in your seat. You buy this car because you want something very reliable, something that's really fun to chuck around, something that's a great daily driver, something that, again, is just extremely reliable. And, you know, when you see a DC2 or DC4 Integra, when you see those round, you know, bug-eye headlights, you know what this car is. So that's why you buy an Acura Integra. You buy it for the culture. You buy it because it drives great in its stock iteration. And if you're somebody that wants to do the mods on the car, go ahead and do that. But you have to realize that you're not going to really get, you know, something that's going to really, really, really impress you in terms of power and torque. Because if you want to do that, you're going to have to spend a lot of money on the car, and I'd recommend you just get a different car to begin with. But if you can appreciate the car in its stock iteration, for what it is, I would definitely recommend an Integra for you. I think that the GSRs are, in my opinion, for the same argument that I just said, I think that the GSRs are just too expensive in today's day and age. I would recommend you get the B18 B1, the non-VTEC, because it's a fun car and they're still really cheap. If you guys enjoyed this video, I've got some AP1 S2000 content. I have a 20,000 mile AP1 S2000. Check out that video right here. If you want to see some more Acura Integra stuff, I have some tutorials on how to do some things like putting 6.5 component speakers in here, and I do have a pretty cool POV of me driving around South Lake Tahoe, and that's the other video right here. As always guys, Blazing Tech, and we'll catch you on the next one.